So a friend of mine called me up and asked me for my address, and I was a little bit skeptical because that seemed really weird. I gave it to him anyways, and I got this in the mail. This is a book called Nomad Capitalist. Turned out to be really good, and it's all about moving to the parts of the world or doing business in parts of the world that treat you the very, very best. Which made me think, where are the very best parts of the world? And that's what this video is all about. Hi everybody, my name's Tyus and I make videos about personal liberty. In this video, we're gonna be talking about what are the best places in the world to live in and be at. And if you're like me, you might value freedom over other things. There are places that have incredible sunsets and they've got amazing weather, they've got beautiful beaches, and some beaches be crazy, you know what I'm talking about. But I value freedom, so I'm gonna be looking at the countries that have the most liberty, the most freedom available. Now, the United States national anthem has that immortal line, land of the free, but we're not the only country that values freedom. For example, the national anthem for Belize is also called the land of the free. A lot of places value freedom. The real question to be asking is, if I'm going to start listing off, here are the freest countries, how is that measured? Based off of what, really? And the truth is I cheated. There's a report that comes out by the Cato Institute every year called the Human Freedom Index. And it measures different categories that averages together to tell us which countries are the freest in the world. I'll go a little bit farther into detail on how that's measured right now. Now, the way the Cato Institute measures this, or the way they create an approximation, is by creating a freedom score, and that score is made up of two things. The first thing it's made up of is economic freedom. So that represents things like the size of government, property rights, regulations, freedom of trade, things like that. The second factor is personal freedom. That would include things like freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, religion, gender and sexuality, freedom of expression, and that kind of thing. Those two scores are averaged together to create a score that's between 0 and 10. 0 being absolutely impossibly bad, and 10 being unbelievably perfect, ideally. The report also breaks the world up into regions. So the freest regions in the world are North America, followed by Western Europe, and then East Asia. The worst regions in the world to live in is going to be the Middle East, followed by North and Sub-Saharan Africa, and then South Asia. Now, we're going to get into the best countries, but first, let's take a look at the worst countries to live in. Now, on the list of bad places to live, coming in at number 5 is Iran. It's got a really bad black market trade, it has intolerance for same-sex relationships and divorce, it has repression of opposing viewpoints, so it's just not a great place to live. Number 4 is Yemen. Now, Yemen is a little bit better than Iran on economic freedom, but it's way worse on personal freedom. It has basically zero tolerance for differences in spiritual beliefs and personal identity, and it has a really bad policy around the media. The third worst country is Venezuela. Now, it has all kinds of legal system problems, their economic system's a mess, it has high regulations, it's got really unstable currency, its inflation is through the roof, and it's worth noting that Venezuela is the only country on this list of bottom 5 that has not been in any recent military conflicts with the United States, and I certainly hope it stays that way. I don't want to see any more bombs dropped on my watch, not that I'm in charge. Now, the runner-up for the worst country when it comes to freedom is Sudan. This country has really limited civil liberties, it's got incredibly unstable currency, there's really bad trade barriers in place, and its legal system is a mess. And the winner for the worst place to live if you, or I guess the best place to live if you hate freedom, the worst place to live if you love freedom, and that goes to Syria. Syria has it all. It's a terrible rule of law, homicide rates are off the charts, political and religious intolerance. Basically, it's terrible. It's also the only country that fell below a score of 4 on the Freedom Index. So by far the lowest score of any country, terrible place to live. What about the best countries? What's the best places to live? On the list of really, really free countries, coming in on that list at number 5 is Australia. Now, Australia actually gets some perfect scores on here. It has incredible freedom of movement, incredible freedom of expression, great free speech. Man, it's unfortunate to mess up the word speech. It has a very open freedom of the press. It's a very safe country, low homicide rates, and there's almost zero terrorism there, so it's doing really, really great. Number 4 on the list is Denmark. Now, Denmark's an incredibly progressive country, especially when it comes to things like sexual stuff, being gay. Absolutely fine in Denmark. Don't even worry about it. You can have all kinds of religious freedoms, relationship freedoms. Who you marry is up to you. Incredibly sound freedom of information policies there. And Denmark is really, really financially sound. Coming in at number 3 is Hong Kong. Now, Hong Kong's the only communist country that happens to be high on the Freedom Index, but it has been falling off over time. It used to be number 1 through 2008 until 2012, and it's slowly been diminishing, but still a great place to live. Now, the runner-up for the freest country is Switzerland. It's well balanced in its freedoms, it has strong personal freedom, great place. And the winner for the freest country in the world is New Zealand. Congratulations to all the Kiwis out there. Now you might be wondering, where was the USA in this list? Why weren't they on there? Well, that's a good question. The US is actually 17th place in the Freedom Index, and it's been falling fast. In fact, it fell 9 spots in 1 year. Now, the United States' weaknesses is the rule of law there is rough, the size of the government is enormous. We lack a lot of things around free trade and freedom of religion. So even though it's a wonderful place to live for a lot of reasons, it's not the freest place in the world. So if you don't want to move, but you want a freer place to live, here's a few things you can do to get there. The first thing is you can support democracy. Now, I'm actually not a fan of democracy in all regards. For example, I don't want a committee deciding what kind of jeans I need to buy when I go clothes shopping. But democracy seems to have a direct correlation with the amount of freedom that a country has. Now, the big exception to this is Hong Kong. They seem to be very high on the Freedom Index, but besides them, everybody else is democratic countries. The second thing you can do is you can get rich. There is a direct correlation between the riches of people and the amount of freedom those countries have. So the freest countries, people earn a little over $50,000 per year on average, while the least free, they earn about $8,000 per average. Now, these are correlative facts. This is not causation necessarily. It could be that when you live in a freer area, you happen to make more money. That's definitely a possibility, or it might work the other way around, where as you make more money, it makes the environment around you freer. And the third thing you can do is you can support what's called the non-aggression principle, which is basically the idea that you do not cause harm or cause aggression against anybody else who doesn't aggress against you. Basically, don't reach out and hit people, don't take their stuff, don't hurt people unless it's in defense of somebody trying to hurt you. So that's called the non-aggression principle. It's really kind of the basis of libertarianism, but it's a really, really great starting point for finding and reaching a freer community. So in our last year on this planet, at least in my country, we've seen a lot of division, assault, batteries, lootings, breaking and enterings from both the conservatives and the liberal side of our country. And both sides are violating what this would be the non-aggression principle. They're both aggressing against the other, and I think we can do a lot better if we want to have the land of the free, in which, you know, we so aspiringly tried to set after when we founded our country. So, if you like this kind of content, if this is stuff that interests you, I'm going to be releasing another video about the freest states in the United States, in case you happen to live here with me. And if you like these videos, please subscribe, please follow. If you don't subscribe, you won't be informed of when that next video comes out about the freest states in the country. And if you hit the bell, they will definitely notify you when it comes out. And I hope to see you on the next video.